officially convened down at the new City Hall complex, and so this is a continuation of the meeting. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please note everyone is in attendance. We'll start with the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the July 23rd meeting, approval of bills and claims, and on licenses and permits, we have a renewal of a Class C liquor license with Sunday sales for the American Legion Post number 7. Need a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote.
Base? Yes. Fleshner?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Cobb?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Are there any oral requests and communications from the audience? If not, we will move to our ordinances. And our first ordinance this evening is the Rolling Hills South condominiums, and it is 5:38, and we'll open a public hearing. And Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight is 3 requests. The first primary is a public hearing this evening to consider a rezoning request. This request we received from Matthew Gredeman, president of 704 Development Corporation, to rezone a parcel of land north of the intersection of Summit Drive and West Ridge Drive. The request is to rezone this area from A1 Agricultural District to PUD Planned Unit Development with an underlying zoning of R3 Low Density Residential District. The property is identified in the 2013 Comprehensive Plan as Low Density Residential, and the planned unit development calls for 6 duplex buildings for 12 units total. Additionally, tonight, 704 Development Corporation has presented for consideration a preliminary plat for Rolling Hills South Condominium Subdivision. The plat includes a total of 1 residential lot and 1 street lot. The residential lot is for a condominium association and will include the 6 duplex buildings and 12 units. Each unit will be individually titled in a condominium association so they can be sold to individual owners. A homeowners association will be established to own and maintain the common areas within a development. For utilities in the plat, there's a public street called West Ridge Drive that will be extended as a cul-de-sac as part of the development, and each unit will have access to that new public street. City-owned utilities are proposed to be extended in the development to serve it with City of Carroll water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer system. Additionally, with the preliminary plat, there is a design exception requested with this. The Rolling Hills South includes a 3-legged intersection, as I described earlier. The street grades are such that the runoff from the intersection would exceed what's allowed under the city standards. JAO Consulting Group has estimated or has calculated that to be at 2.6 cubic feet per second. Staff's concern is because of excessive flow across the intersection, it can present a hazard to pedestrians and vehicular traffic, and the design criteria includes overall restrictions on the maximum rate of surface water flow across the intersection. Based on SUDAS, that is the state standards, and our City of Carroll special provisions, which in fact are less restrictive than SUDAS in this case, the permitted flow based on the designed gutter slope is 0.3 cubic feet per second. So our staff's concern is when water spreads across the intersection, which is expected to occur here, homeowners and the traveling public will perceive this to be an issue. Additionally, without intakes, there will be potential for ice conditions that could occur during freezing and thawing cycles, especially in the early morning hours, which would require daily maintenance by the city, which does happen in other intersections throughout the city of Carroll. This type of situation has occurred historically, for one example, on High Ridge Road, and after years of complaints, the city had to go in and actually install additional stormwater intakes to make and other physical improvements to improve the conditions on High Ridge. Staff is concerned that without these intakes, similar situations could occur in this neighborhood, so we highlight our concern there. The third item is consideration of setting a public hearing for a development agreement related to this project. On February 26th of this year, the council did take action to direct staff to proceed with the creation of an urban renewal district to support this development through a tax increment financing rebate agreement with 704 Development Corporation. This draft was included in the council packet. The development agreement outlines the terms and conditions and is proposed to provide $72,000 to the developer in support of their workforce housing tax credit application they made with the state of Iowa. Staff did work with Allers and Cooney to create the draft agreement that's in the packet. It is requested tonight that the City Council consider setting a public hearing on the proposed adoption of development agreement for August 27, 2018 council meeting. With that, I would note that the Planning and Zoning Commission did review this at their July 11th meeting. They did vote to recommend City Council approval of the rezoning request. The Planning and Zoning Commission did have extensive discussion on the design variance that was requested. Initially, the commission did vote on a 4-to-1 vote to approve it without the staff recommended stormwater intakes at the intersection of West Ridge Drive and Summit Drive. However, since the Planning and Zoning Commission has to have at least 5 members of the 9-member commission voting yes, that motion did fail. The commission did continue discussion on the preliminary plat, and the original motion to recommend City Council approval without the staff recommended stormwater intakes was represented, and at that time it did pass on a 5-0 vote. Staff's recommendation is that the City Council consider approving the rezoning request as presented, that they approve the Rolling Hills South condominium subdivision preliminary plat subject to adding the stormwater intakes at the West Ridge Drive and Summit Drive to meet the maximum permitted flow of 0.3 cubic feet per second across the intersection, and that the City Council consider approving a resolution fixing the date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a development agreement with 704 Development Corporation. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have this evening.
So the request that the staff asked for, that was approved by the zoning commission? I want to make sure I get that correct.
The Planning and Zoning Commission actually recommended approval of the plat without the staff recommended
Okay.
intakes.
Okay.
So that was their recommendation.
You have an opinion on that, Randy? I mean, I know that's kind of open-ended, but, you know, it's like we've had some issues like that before.
Right. Yeah, certainly the staff recommendation follows the council policy for stormwater, and that was part of the special provisions to the SUDAS design requirements. So and that policy, of course, was approved by past councils to keep the water off the street. I mean, for several reasons, safety being one of them. And the other is the integrity of the street itself. The more water that's permitted to flow on the street, the more opportunity there is for it to get into joints and soften the subgrade and prematurely deteriorate the street. So it's the recommendation of the staff was strictly along the lines of the current council policy, and that's why it has come back to you because it's a request for a variation to the policy that had been adopted.
I just was reading through that, and I just wanted to make sure I understood that right. Because it seemed to me like if we're going to try and keep the water off the road, we did that, we had all that trouble on High Ridge. We had to go through all that to get that fixed, and that has significantly improved.
Mm-hmm. There are similar circumstances throughout the city. Certainly stormwater is a common enemy of everyone, it appears, and the place that it has to be picked up is in a low point, because that's where it
That's where
ponds
you
and
flow.
floods.
Yeah.
So, but as you work yourself up the watershed, to higher points in the watershed, it's advantageous from a safety standpoint and certainly protection of the pavement to begin picking it up somewhere upstream in the watershed. And that somewhere is, the policy kind of dictates that at this point. It has selected that point where you should begin constructing storm sewers up in the watershed away from the low point. And in this case, because of the grades, and it's all varies depending on grades, in this case, it's at that point where 0.3 of a cubic foot per second crosses the intersection. So that's kind of the background of the policy creation, and what it does, it really dictates the beginning of the storm sewer at that point. And it's certainly like on High Ridge Road, we extended that storm sewer south up the hill to a point where we began collecting
sewer.
the sewer. And actually, the High Ridge Road was a three-step issue. The first step, there were only inlets in the low point, clear down at Granada Road. Then the city did go in and build some storm sewer to the south several years ago. And then that was perceived to be not acceptable, and later it was extended farther to the south to collect that water further up the hill. So that's kind of the evolution of the storm sewer construction on that particular location.
Okay.
Randy, there was a buildup of slime because of the runoff on High Ridge, I remember, and a bicyclist had a bad wreck because of slipping in the
Yeah.
slime.
That situation, and that's true, it was. And
Yeah.
then it evolved into ice in the wintertime.
Right, right.
But that situation was similar physically, but the cause was a little bit different. They had continual sump pumping
Right,
there.
right.
And we don't know if there will be sump pumping at this location. Maybe, may not be, we don't know for sure. But that's absolutely correct. It did build up.
Randy, this is just down the street from where I live. Can you explain to the council where this water will flow to and where it'll get into the storm system at?
Currently, it would flow, certainly on existing Summit, it will flow to the west, down to West Ridge, and then West Ridge south toward Pleasant Ridge Road. So I would anticipate that the ultimate outlet from the currently projected residential development would be at Pleasant Ridge Road to the south. Would that'd be just a...
That was what I was wanting, was just that illustration. Thank
Sure.
you. Fairly simple, but just to understand where it's going.
Sure.
And the pushback from the P&Z is based on what? Cost?
I think it was cost ultimately. I know the developers here can speak on that. I know that this becomes a factor. This, with the workforce tax credit program, there is a cap of how much these units can be before it's no longer eligible to be in the program. And this stormwater outlet, the extension of it, puts that in jeopardy. So it definitely is a factor. It was clearly a factor in the Planning and Zoning Commission's decision.
I guess that clarifies that, and now I see where they're going. Okay.
It appears to me to be a relatively short run of street compared to other things.
And it is relatively shorter, yes, from this location and West Ridge and Summit to the ultimate outlet of the storm sewer, comparatively, certainly.
When we talk about comparing it to High Ridge, we're a much longer stretch of road there that was worked and taken care of.
Are there any questions from the audience, since this is a public hearing about this project? Gene? Yeah? Come on up. introduce yourself and,
Jean Ludwig. I'm a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission,
yes.
and I was on that discussion. And the point would be the possibility that this development could not take place because it did not meet the requirements, number one. And also, isn't there another way to take care of that wastewater going to the south towards Pleasant Ridge? I haven't really heard of another option being available. And so those were several of the things, but the ability to maintain the cost within the guidelines that were presented.
Okay, that clarified it then. I just was, why would you not want to get rid of some of that water? But
Yeah, there are just
if
other
it gets
other things about it.
cost prohibitive, then I get it. Okay, thank you very much.
Doc, I got a couple comments too, so.
Sure, just tell us who you are.
I would be
Thank you,
Matthew
please.
Gredeman,
Yep.
so.
Thank you, sir.
Couple thoughts. The run, Clay is correct, is about 150, 170 feet going across the road from the east heading west on Summit Drive. So it's not a very long run going across another road. So that's number one.
Not as big as that High Ridge one.
No. Number two, it's already a development that has streets in place already. Okay, so like High Ridge, it has streets in place. It's very expensive to come and try to retrofit that with storm sewer. Our goal would be to capture the storm sewer water at the corner of what we'll call West Ridge, and then is the South Road, South Ridge? Is that what we have down there? I'm not sure what that one is. It's in there for one house, I think, but at the corner, right in the corner of our development, and it would drain into Pleasant Ridge Road. And
So
then
you
it
could
would go-
design it to put the storm sewers that would make this available from a cost perspective.
Into the
advantageous.
next field, yes,
Yeah,
into the next
okay.
field. Yeah, and that would be the intent that we would do, because we have to get it somewhere anyway.
Right.
So we would capture it there and then drain it into the ditch, and then that would be essentially gone, so.
Do those drain intakes, do they come in various sizes that you could get a larger one so you could collect more water, or are they all standard size?
Oh, boy.
Sorry.
At the bottom of the hill, bud.
Oh, boy.
Sure, it's gonna be based on the pipe that's receiving.
Yeah, it's the
receiving
size,
it
it's the
too,
size
yeah.
of pipe and
Pipe.
everything, and the
Okay.
pipe, the run pipe, you know.
Okay.
It's probably I wouldn't speculate on the size, because I'm not an engineer, but, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
so.
We're not talking about a flood risk into a home.
No, we're at the top of a hill.
That's not an issue, correct?
Just-
Randy also.
Yeah. Okay.
And we really become an issue, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but when we cross the street, or when we have the intersection, that three-legged intersection you're talking about.
In a storm event, you know, you're going to see the conditions where, you know, the crown of the road, the entire road will be underwater. Additionally, during that freeze-thaw cycle, there's going to be nowhere where water is going to be able to go. So you're going to have freezing and thawing that's going to occur. That happens throughout the city. We have a lot of intersections about it, but it's just one more intersection that'll be at.
Matt, one question I had, and I didn't dig it out of here, is sump pump discharge typically, I haven't seen that designed into it. I don't anticipate it being there to discharge into the street.
No, well, the sump pump discharge, generally, they're discharging into yards.
Right.
You know, they're not allowed to go into sanitary, and we don't send them into storm either, so.
Well, that was the
So
point.
they're into yards, and we've not dumped any onto the street, and there's very few down there that have been doing it right now, so I'm sure in a heavy rain or period, it could happen, so.
I know we put some in to help out over on the
Yes.
other side of town. And
Yes.
just to that point, it is fairly minimal.
Yeah, we're on the top of a hill, yeah. so-
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Matt.
thanks.
Any other questions from the audience? Any other questions from the council? If not, it is 5:55, and we'll close the public hearing. And we will need a resolution to approve, to rezone the above described property from
It's an
A1.
ordinance.
In here has got, okay. So do we have to,
So it'll be first reading of the ordinance.
just a first reading, okay. just have to approve the first reading. Okay. Need a motion?
Council could consider waiving it.
Waiving. That's one of those, whoever wants to make up the motion, will. We just need to waive the first reading. You can choose to waive all three.
I would so move.
You would say what?
Waive all three.
To waive all three.
Yes.
I'll second.
There's
I'm a little uncomfortable with that. That's okay, it would be a majority vote.
Only have time for discussion at this point, right?
Are we all satisfied with it? I'm a little concerned.
If I didn't know the area, I would probably share concern.
Yeah, me too. It's near, we're near each other.
My only reservation is if down the road, if this is considered an issue, then all of a sudden it's all squarely on taxpayers' lap to fix it. To that end, I don't want to see the project fail either as this, so.
Well, I don't want to see the project fail, I'm just worried about waiving all the readings right away.
If you waive the first one, if we have to come back, you can waive the second and third.
It would give more time for public to voice opinions and concerns.
Are we at risk of any timelines if we did?
No, I mean, the only comment I would say is the ordinance is just on the rezoning, just to be clear. It's not on the preliminary plat itself. Now, it does take at least 5 affirmative votes to waive the 3 readings, so please be aware of that. But this is not, the ordinance has nothing to do with the design waiver that they're requesting. So it's 2 separate issues. That'll be the next
And I'm
item.
comfortable with that piece.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
To waive all 3
To
readings.
waive all 3
Correct.
readings.
That's what the motion in the second.
That's correct.
Okay. Base?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
No.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
And then you need then we have to approve the ordinance, motion to approve the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
And a motion and a second to approve the ordinance?
Cox?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Ordinance is adopted.
Okay. And you need to approve that's all done. Do we?
No, resolution
We have to
now on
have
the
that resolution
preliminary
for the
plat.
preliminary plat.
Yeah.
Yep. So we need a motion to approve the Rolling Hills South Condominium subdivision preliminary plat.
So moved.
Second.
And is that with or without the design variance?
Without, right?
No,
We don't need a design. Do we have to clarify that?
I would
Yeah.
clarify that,
The
absolutely.
variance is,
Because it's the variance is what
would
was.
be no inlets.
Yes.
With the variance.
Okay.
And I still support with variance.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second?
Seaman?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Fleischner?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
And then finally, we need a resolution to fix the date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a development agreement with 704 Development Corporation.
Do we have such a date, or do you just need the resolution allowing it?
It is set for September, or August
27th.
26th.
7.
Sorry, 27.
Yep, 27.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, who was the motion on
I
this
made the motion.
And then
Motion and
second.
Haley seconded.
Okay, thank you. Fleischner?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Motion is approved.
Thank you. Our next ordinance is on the Carroll Park Apartments, and it is 6:01, and we'll open a public hearing. And Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you, again, it's 3 similar requests as the last item. The first was a request received by Martin Steffes, Vice President of Roman Steffes and Sons Construction, to rezone property south of the North Ridge 4th Subdivision Phase 3, which is located east of Bella Vista Drive and approximately 550 feet west of Griffith Road. The request is to rezone the area from R3 low-density residential to PUD planned unit development with an underlying zoning of R5 high-density residential. The property identified, this property is identified in the comprehensive plan as general business. The PUD site plan calls for 8 duplex buildings on the north side of the property for a total of 16 units, and on the south side of the property, 2 30-unit market rate apartment buildings. The development itself will contain a total of 76 dwelling units. Additionally, there's a purchase agreement between Roman Steffes and Sons Construction LLC and Green Stream Homes of Iowa, a limited Iowa liability corporation, to purchase the property. Green Stream Homes of Iowa has presented for consideration a preliminary plat for Carroll Park Apartment subdivision, which includes the entirety of the 8 duplex buildings and 2 30-unit apartment buildings. In the development, a new public street is proposed to be constructed as part of the development, which will be a cul-de-sac proposed to be called East 9th Street. Each of the duplexes will have direct access to East 9th Street. The apartment development will have a private drive that will connect to East 9th to access the development of the apartment buildings, parking area, and garages that are proposed. Finally, at the June 25th, 2018 council meeting, direction was given by the City Council to proceed with the creation of an urban renewal plan to support a development tax increment finance TIF rebate agreement with Kenyon Hills Ridge LLC related to the development of Carroll Park Apartments. Attached is, or included in the council packet, was a draft of the proposed development agreement that enables that proposed TIF rebate. The development agreement outlines the terms and conditions, and related to this development, the proposal is to reimburse the developer the cost of installing the public utilities and infrastructure for the development. JEO Consulting Group has completed an engineer's conceptual opinion of probable costs on the public utilities and estimated that the public utilities will cost $493,060. The development agreement specifies the maximum incentive will be either the developer's certified cost of the public utilities up to a maximum of $600,000. The city again worked with Allers and Cooney to create the draft development agreement, and it's requested tonight that City Council consider setting a public hearing on the proposed adoption of the development agreement for August 27, 2018. The Planning and Zoning Commission did review this request for the rezoning and preliminary plat at the July 11, 2018 meeting and recommended that the City Council approve both requests. Staff's recommendation is that the City Council consider approving a request to rezone the above described property from R3 low-density residential to PUD planned unit development with underlying zoning of R5 high-density residential. 2, that the City Council consider approval of the Carroll Park Apartment subdivision preliminary plat. And 3, that the City Council consider approval of a resolution fixing the date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a development agreement with Kenyon Hill Ridge LLC. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has at this time.
I think the one that I was trying to find it, but if this one has both rental and housing units for sale, right?
Correct. So the duplexes is proposed to be sold. Those units, off the top of my head, I believe are $240,000 to $260,000 is kind of the market. So those will be owner occupied. Then the 2 30-unit apartment buildings would be market rate apartment buildings. The developers indicated rents would be between $950 and $1,000 a month.
So if one of the units is sold at less than market rate, did that have anything to do with the tax?
They have not.
Nothing.
They're not doing a workforce
Okay.
tax credit in this development.
All right. Okay. I think I misread that. Because my question would have been is if they're not leasing the apartments at market rate or at the LMI, does that throw them out for the qualification for the
No,
tax too?
and the only thing the development agreement outlined was that the purpose of this development was for market rate
Okay.
units. and that the incentive that we're providing, and that's how they're agreeing that that's how they're
How
going
they're
to
gonna
market.
do it, okay.
They're not going to seek making this like a government
Right.
subsidy
Right.
development.
Okay.
And additionally, the incentive we're providing cannot be used with a local match for an IFA
Okay.
project.
Mike, would you clarify, in the memo, it says that Stephenson Sons will sell the land to Greenstream, and then page 2 in the agreement with Canyon Hill Ridge, it states that the developer, Canyon Hill Ridge, and we're doing our agreement with the developer, not Greenstream, they will ultimately own the land then? It will be
Correct.
transferred, is that the correct order of
So
the process?
Greenstream is kind of a developer partner with Canyon Hills.
Okay.
So they go out and set these developments up, and then they sell them to Canyon Hills.
So there will be a transfer
Correct.
of the land? Okay.
Yeah, so ultimately Canyon Hills will own.
Okay, thank you.
Oh. Any other questions? Are any questions pertaining this subject from the audience? If there aren't any further questions, it's 6:08, and we'll close the public hearing. So we'll need a motion to approve the ordinance with regards to the rezoning request from R3 low-density residential district to PUD, which is a planned unit development with an underlay zoning of R5 high-density residential district, and
So moved.
waive the first reading, waive first reading,
Wait, whatever.
or waive however many
Say
readings.
desire when you're-
All three.
I would say waive all three.
Waive all three?
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Councilman Kotz and a second from Councilman Haley.
Cox?
Yes.
Space? Yes. Fleischner?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Dirk?
No.
Seaman?
Yes.
Motion is approved 5-1.
Motion to adopt the ordinance?
Second.
We have a motion to adopt and a second. Go ahead. Vote,
Seaman?
please.
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Space? Yes. Motion is approved.
And then we need a motion to approve the Carroll Park Apartment subdivision, the preliminary plat.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, we'll vote.
Dirk?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Space? Yes. Motion is approved.
Will they have the same public hearing date?
Correct.
So August 27th?
Yep.
So we'll set the August 27th for the public hearing on the proposal to enter into a development agreement with Canyon Hill Ridge LLC.
So moved.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, we'll vote.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Space? Yes. Seaman?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. We'll move to resolutions next, and the first resolution is the U.S. Cellular Water Tower Equipment Modification, and Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. U.S. Cellular, excuse me, is one of the cell companies occupying the water tower with antennas and equipment. They have proposed modifications to their equipment, primarily that on the tower. Of course, they have antennas up on the tower and then other associated equipment located on the ground. But these modifications are primarily to the tower-mounted equipment, and they include the removal of 6 antennas and replacement with 6 new antennas, and then some associated radio and other equipment. Actually, there is very little, I think there's one small piece of equipment that's in addition to what they have on the tower right now. And that piece of equipment will be located on an existing antenna mast. So they're not proposing to occupy any additional space on the tower. Now, the space is leased to them under a lease agreement that's not proposed to be changed. The current payment would propose to be continued. The only, the reason it comes to you is there is a modification provision in the agreement listing the equipment that's actually located on the tower. And that's what this modification amendment is proposed to do, is remove the equipment that's currently in the lease and add the equipment they're proposing to add. So unless there are any questions, I would recommend approval or passage of the resolution approving the amendment number 2 to the U.S. Cellular water tower lease.
The city guys don't do this. They have their own company that puts these up there?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Any other questions for Randy? If not, I need a motion to approve the resolution approving the amendment number 2 to water tower attachment option and lease agreement with RSA number 9 Limited Partnership.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Kotz and a second from Councilman Haley. If there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote.
Bates? Yes. Haley?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. The second resolution is the covering the street lighting downtown streetscape phase 9. And Randy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Throughout the Phase 9 streetscape, there will be current or existing Mid-America leased lighting removed from those sections of street and replaced with the streetscape fixtures, which are actually owned by the city and paid, the power cost is paid based on meter reading. The lease lighting is based on scheduled tariff per unit. Within this Phase 9 project, there are 13 Mid-America streetlights that will be removed and replaced then with 117 streetscape lights. But this resolution is for directing Mid-American to remove their streetlights and then remove them from the list of charges to the city for street lighting. So this resolution will reduce the city street lighting by about $4,200 over the next 11 months. So the street lighting budget should reduce, but the electric power cost obviously will increase with the addition of the streetscape street lighting. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend the passage of the resolution removing the Mid-America lighting from the streetscape project, streetscape Phase 9 project.
Any other questions for Randy? If not, I need a motion to approve the resolution covering the street lighting for the downtown streetscape Phase 9.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Haley and a second by Councilman Dirks. If there is any other discussion, we'll vote.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bates? Yes. Dirk?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Our third resolution is the Carroll Public Library, Carroll City Hall project. And it is 6:15, and we will open a public hearing. And Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Plan specification, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Library City Hall project have been filed by OPN Architects. The plan specification, form of contract, and estimate of cost are generally described as follows. For the plans detail construction associated with 112, 118 East Fifth Street, or the former government building, for the Carroll Public Library, and 627 North Adams Street for the Carroll City Hall. Related to the specifications further detail construction of planned improvements at those two properties, and specifications were prepared by OPN Architects. The form of contract was initially prepared by OPN Architects and has been reviewed and edited by city attorney and city staff. The estimate of costs for construction is as follows. For the Carroll Public Library, $3,292,104. For the Carroll City Hall, $1,354,400. Total construction cost is $4,646,504. Based on the current construction cost estimate, holding an 8% construction contingency, fees for design and construction services, furnishings, miscellaneous costs with a range of 4 to 8%, temporary lease costs, moving costs, legal and bonding costs, abatement and mitigation specifically for asbestos, land purchase, construction rebates, and sales tax refunds. The total project cost is estimated to be between $6,652,262 and $6,936,842. The budget for the project and funding available for the Carroll Public Library and Carroll City Hall project are as follows. We have local option sales tax that was budgeted in the previous 2018 fiscal year of $350,000. Local option sales tax budgeted in the current fiscal year, 2019, of $150,000. Bonding in the current fiscal year of $3,800,000. $25,000 contribution from Carroll County. The Carroll Public Library Foundation, as of July 30th, 2018, has raised both in cash donation and pledges $2,112,394. And then with an Enhance Iowa CAT grant request that is pending at their next meeting on Wednesday, August 8th, of $499,448, bringing the total funds available to $6,936,842, which does match the maximum projected cost of the project at this point. The project schedule is anticipated as follows. Bid receipt, bids are out right now and be solicited. Bids are due August 29th, 2018 at 4 p.m. Bid and contract awarded is anticipated on September 10th, 2018. Estimated construction completion is August 2nd, 2019 for the Carroll City Hall and October 25th, 2019 for the Carroll Public Library. I would note we do have representatives from OPN that are in the audience tonight to answer any technical questions that the council does have on the plans and specifications. And it is recommended that the mayor and city council conduct the required public hearing and consider passage and approval of a resolution adopting the plan specification, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Carroll Public Library, Carroll City Hall project. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has at this time.
Any questions from the council? If not, it is a public hearing. Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
I just have one quick question.
Come forward and, I'm sorry, everybody's obligated to announce themselves to the camera.
Dick Carlson.
Yes,
One
sir.
quick question. In the event that there are significant overruns over the budget, how do you propose to pay them? Where's the money come from? You have that plan, of course. No
I
plan?
suppose you could get it from the LOST. I guess we are not going to know until after we get our bids back.
Okay.
I think basically, once the bids come in, I've always said that once you get the bids in, that's where that's going to give you the direction.
So at this time, there is no plan. Is that the basic answer?
Probably could say that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep. Oh, yes, sir.
I guess one follow-up comment I would make is, typically a project at this point in time, we would have a 5% contingency. We're proposing to actually hold the project at an 8% contingency, which, for numbers' sake, we could have kept this project at $6.8 million by just lowering the contingency. So we're trying to be transparent with a higher contingency. Additionally, some miscellaneous costs like asbestos mitigation, legal bonding costs would be an area that would be included in miscellaneous costs. We've actually pulled those items out and have held the miscellaneous budget at 4 to 8%. So I think, there's always the issue of you get into construction and what issues you're facing, but I believe we've tried to protect the budget and the integrity of the budget to show that, if there is an unforeseen issue, that we can actually address that issue.
And that figure, that 8% is in there.
Yes.
Is that fairly typical, 8%? I mean, I thought originally we had were we doing 10%?
Well, at this point, when you go into design contingency, typically you'd be at 5%.
One more question. I know in December, OPM had a contingency figure in their budget of about $670,000. Now, the one that you have before you has about 300 and some thousand, about $300,000 less. How does that come? What is that all about? How do you do that?
Well, if you recall back in December, the discussion was, when you move into design, you have, since we hadn't been through design at that point, it's a 15% design contingency. So as you find additional items that you were not expecting going through design, because again, at that point, OPN had only completed a pretty inexpensive conceptual design for the project. As they went through now their full design process, they now have more known elements. They know some of the heating and HVAC conditions. They know some additional soil conditions they didn't know back in December. So it's pretty typical, and we can ask OPN because they're behind us too. It's very typical. Early in the design, you have a higher contingency, and as you move through that process...
Well, which number's right? That's really the question. Was the first number right or is the last number right?
They're both right, because we are in a different design period, sir.
Just looks like a little reverse engineering there for a minute, but I'm sure that didn't happen. Thank you.
I think it needs to be said that we are also up on the cusp of having bids actually submitted, and we're speculating before the bids come in. We'll have bids here August 29th. They'll come in. We should know more at that time, correct?
Mike, if I understood you right, that's typical for any project, not just this project.
No, it's very typical when you go in design, you have a higher contingency.
Right.
And as you work through design...
So this is nothing that would
No.
be any different than any other...
We were very transparent in that in December.
I have the document from December 18th in front of me, and early on, the design bid construction contingency early on was 15%, which got us up to $677,286. But same line item on their breakdown design bid construction contingency is now at 8%. So we've dropped from 15% down to 8%, which brought us down to the 371. Is that correct? Am I following?
You are
Okay.
absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jean Ludwig again. I was trying to find the interest rate on our bond. I couldn't see that in any of the numbers, and it doesn't say whether it's a 4-year or an 18-year. Where is that interest, and how is it paid, and how is it shown in this cost? And so I'd like a little more transparency there, please.
Well, we haven't issued bonds yet. That comes at a later phase in the project, and the interest rate will be based on the market rate at that point.
But it's not included in these cost figures.
Never is.
It never is.
On any project
Any
of this
project, it
nature.
never is.
You won't get that interest rate until you actually get the bonds.
So that's playing with numbers.
That's the way I guess the code is set up. I mean, we can have a rough estimate of what the interest rates are today. They're probably not going to vary a whole lot. What do they run? 1.5%, 2%?
PFM gave us an estimate, and
Yeah.
aren't the bonds set for, 19 years? How many? I can't remember.
19
They
years.
did a very
19 years.
detailed
19 years.
document, looked at the rollback, looked at everything, And Suzanne Gerlach estimated, I think she had interest, Jean, around, but she's estimating, she talked to us like a year ago. Well, it was somewhere in the 4 percentile.
I believe that's correct.
Extrapolating into the future. And I believe, it was a 19-year issuance.
One of the scenarios that was presented was...
But we could do shorter.
We can do
But have bigger
shorter.
payment,
Yep.
yeah. So we have different bond scenarios with our PFM documents that we considered.
Ultimately, that'll be a decision that the council makes when we go to sell the debt.
So where does that money come from? I mean, it's not budgeted. Where does it come from?
That was the bond referendum that passed, the
Well, I
3.8
know, but
million.
where does the interest money come from? That's the question. I mean, we see
It's-
where this is, but where does it come from?
So with municipalities, interest is above and beyond the 3.8 million that was authorized with the bond referendum. It's different than school districts. Schools, when they do, like, for example, the PEPL is, the interest is included in the PEPL. We didn't set the rules or regulations on that. That's set by the Iowa legislature, but that's how it operates for cities. So for cities, interest is always on top of the 3.8, or the amount of debt you're taking on.
Are you still talking an 18-year payout period?
That is one of the scenarios that the council
Is that a
has.
yes or no, Mike?
It's ultimately a decision the council will make at some point. It's being considered, yes.
Use the question.
We won't know that until we issue the bonds. 'Cause right now, we haven't issued any bonds.
Correct.
So we don't get that information, and that's happened with any and all the projects we've ever had. You don't know it until you issue the bond.
They're bid on, and then they open the bids and so on.
The
Correct,
bond
yeah.
that we desire to issue will be bid on by banks, and the banks will decide what interest they choose to charge us. Are there any other questions from the public? Please state your name.
Hello, I'm CJ Niles. I don't have a
Thank you.
question, but I just have a comment. I want to thank all of you for your persistence and your pursuit of this project, which is important to Carroll, and all the things that you have worked hard on and that you've been transparent about and you've kept us informed. So there are a lot of us who are excited about this project and continue to be. So thank you.
Thank you. One final call. Any other questions from the audience? Statements? If not, it is 6:29 and we'll close the public hearing. And then I need a motion to approve the resolution adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Councilman Haley and a second by Councilman Kotz. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote.
Seaman?
Yes.
Base? Yes. Dirk?
Yes.
Cobb?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. Our fourth resolution this evening is the cemetery chapel condition study. And is that Jack?
That'd be me.
Jack, please.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last meeting, I had kind of prepped you that this was be coming back when Craig was here discussing the Northeast Park. We're working with Shive Hattery to do some more investigation, design on the cemetery chapel. Plus, if they're going to do this work, I think it's worthwhile for them to look at the building to the north, to see if that should be, if we can convert that into restrooms. That is a request we get periodically up in that area, especially Memorial Day and different times throughout the year when there's different events happening, to have a restroom. Right now, we put porta pots out there. That's not ideal. We want to provide a decent restroom facility, and with this study, both of those things would be accomplished. You have the cemetery chapel does not meet ADA requirements at this point. I think it's important to at least look and have a plan as you go through the years to make sure that that does meet requirements. One would be some permanent parking. And the engineer, when he was up, had some better ideas than what I was thinking originally. And I think the people with the chapel would like this. But it would require some work probably to the east entrance to make that so a wheelchair or a person with special needs would be able to get into that facility. So that's part of this study. And then the other one is you'll have a conceptual drawing showing how that north fieldstone building could be converted into restrooms. The cemetery, old cemetery maintenance building stays as is. There's no work or nothing about construction change at this point to that building. So it's really the two River Rock stone buildings up there that I think it's important to look at. One, making it ADA accessible, and then if my understanding was a desire of the council over the last few years to look at a restroom facility up in that area, and this project will accomplish both of those items for you.
Jack, my concern from what you just said is keeping, I mean, it's a historic building.
Yeah.
And we've got the big carriage doors on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's kind of an indentation back behind, on the west side, where some people park there anyway, so it's kind of a natural place to park. When you mentioned looking at the east side and making it wheelchair accessible, my concern is losing the historic facade and
Sure.
changing the looks from,
Right.
it looks, it has a new roof.
Yeah.
It looks like it did back in the 1930s during the
Right.
Depression era, so
Those things are going to be
wouldn't there be a
looked.
way to allow access, but, I mean, do we have, I don't want the look destroyed. I want
No.
it to look as it did.
That's my goal too, and that's the
Okay.
goal of Shive. And before anything was adopted, this group will have a chance to have their input and adopt the plans if we do any construction documents. And special thank you to Carolyn for her help with this project as we move forward. It looks nice in there, and I don't want to change make any major changes to the look of the facility, but also if someone calls and says, I can't get into the building, which we have different times throughout the year. I hear those, especially in the parks. I think we try to make the attempt to allow that. In this, Carolyn, my original thought was put the parking lot on the east side. No, we have some designs behind the building and to the north of making that the spots available. And if there's a way we can accommodate so the doors can be opened on the garage doors on that side.
That would be a natural with the parking.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some type of system so that can be achieved. Right now, the way they open, they'll need to be smart. But again, that's all what's going to be investigated in this. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to change the look, but also there's requirements that we need to meet. So, again, you'll get to look at this several times before we make any final decisions.
Do both sides, I mean, it's a very small space. I mean,
Yeah.
when people come and if there is a wheelchair and I'm sensitive to those needs, would the one entrance suffice for wheelchair entry on the west? So
Sure.
we don't get
And-
into structurally modifying this so it doesn't keep its historic
Sure.
look, or not?
That's my goal. That's my goal. I don't know that until we look into it a little
Okay.
bit further. But that west door, my concern is how would someone get it open? And hopefully we can accomplish that. I agree with you, Carolyn.
Yeah.
That's ideal. That'd be the ideal spot.
Yeah.
To enter, I agree.
Are they looking at making that a possibility so the front is not altered?
That's my hope.
significantly?
That's my
Okay,
hope.
okay.
And this will be
I
back
don't
to
want
you.
them to have to keep going back to the drawing board and then it drives up the cost.
Sure.
I think up front,
Yep.
I want to be clear about
Sure.
what I'm thinking. I don't know, what are the, Barbara or Vicky, do you want to weigh in at all?
Please give us your name, Barb, I'm sorry. It's for everybody else, for those that aren't here.
Barbara Hackford, Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. I echo what Carolyn says. We started out with what I thought was a very simple project.
I know.
We had a good structure there, and things have kind of spiraled. I won't say which direction, but we really don't want to modify that east side. The carriage doors should work. And I've been thinking, the museum, if people need to get in, I can go down there and open it up. It should be possible to put a sign, if you need access to the west doors, put up a sign, this number should be called, and we'll come let you in. It should be a simple solution.
Yeah, we'll see what they come up with. Yeah.
Would it be possible to just construct a facility for the individual that's in a wheelchair separate off to the side, or no?
You mean to enter?
Yeah.
No,
No,
I mean,
there's
that,
no way.
you might as well just knock down the building if you're
okay.
gonna start doing this. The only logical place to come in is from the west. And it's a large opening. The doors are beautiful. I mean, they look like the era also, and it's huge. It's like a double garage door, so plenty of space for people that have mobility issues.
And it would be possible to have someone there to open the door for them if they made an appointment to see it.
Sure.
You know, ladies, this has been a marvelous springboard, and you've all done so much great work. I think, I trust Jack to bring us some good options to maintain the historic integrity of the site, and I'm very confident that between Carolyn and myself, we're not going to waver very easily to let it get diminished, are we, Carolyn?
Not at all.
No,
No, I
so-
just wanted Jack to nudge them a bit. Thanks. And
Noted.
Jack has been really helpful too. He's
Yeah.
persisted, so.
We're coming to the end of the project now,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
getting exciting too.
We
And
think the
everything
door will
is
be
working
done
well.
this week. I got confirmation that it was gonna be put on
And
this
we
week.
heard this.
Oh,
Which week is this?
This week.
This week.
We had some struggle finding the kind of door handle we needed to accomplish what you were hoping for.
If you
Thank
ever-
you.
If you ever want the best push there is in the world, just get Barbara or Vicky pushing behind you, and they'll take care of getting you there.
They get it done.
They do, you do a wonderful job.
You know offhand the footprint or the size of the building that would be used for the restroom? Just how big is it? Do you have any idea? I don't have to- you can
We
tell me more.
remembered 15 by 18, 15 by 20.
And we're confident that's big enough to they've
We-
already indicated.
There's
know.
already a restroom there.
There's a
I know,
small
but it's not-
restroom.
It's not,
And
It's
then
not
no.
right.
But it's
No.
that other stone building.
It is.
I've been in there and it's,
Yeah.
One thing we figured out last week, that there's space in the middle between those that's unused. That they
I
put
just
out
don't want them to
walls.
say, hey, we need to build out,
right.
Yeah,
and then
I
that
hope so too.
tears it apart, so, okay.
No,
Change the whole,
Thank you.
we won't make it
Facility.
restrooms then.
yeah.
That's all I was worried about.
Yeah.
Change the north building, change the south building, you're gonna have to listen to us an awful lot, so please give the architects a heads up.
Sure. Yep.
Shive's always been very good to us, too.
They're good.
Any other questions for Jack? If not, I need a motion to approve the professional services agreement with Shive Hattery Incorporated for the cemetery chapel condition, and restroom study for a total fee of $7,700.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me, I have a motion by Councilman Haley and a second by Councilwoman Seaman. Or Fleshner. Yeah.
We'll turn the signs around for you.
It's coming from that direction. If there is no further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote.
Fleschner.
Yes.
Dirks.
Yes.
Haley.
Yes.
Cox.
Yes.
Base. Yes. Seaman. Yes. Motion is approved.
Thank you. Our first report this evening is the, oh, no, we got one more. The fifth resolution, amendment number 1 to professional services, Northwest Park, pickleball court complex 2018, and Jack.
Thank you, Mayor. As you remember, the pickleball courts, we had a bid opening and no bids. And the concern again was getting an asphalt company to bid in the time frame we were looking at to accomplish getting the pickleball courts done. Further discussion with different parties and FEH, they need to do some investigation, but it seems like post-tension courts on top of the existing surface could work. Part of this agreement is to investigate, to decide if that can be accomplished. And what that does, hopefully, if we do the post-tension 5 inches, it goes right on top of the courts. We're not digging down like we were before, the 4.5 feet, trying to improve that. That will significantly, or it should help with the bids. You never know what bids come in at, but we think it's going to help with the price of the pickleball courts. If you could take the existing facility area, similar to what we did with the basketball courts in Grand Park, the 4 or 5 inches of sand, then put the surface on top of that, and then they come back and paint. We believe if this gets looked at and approved, that possibly the post-tension concrete could be poured this fall and then come back in the spring and paint. That's hopefully where we save the money. We don't think we'll save any money on the sidewalk or the handicap parking spots or those other things. But as far as the surface, the top surface, we're hoping, and we won't know that answer until we do a little bit more investigating with that. But we hope that this is the best option to hopefully get the pickleball courts within budget or reduce it from what we believe that cost was going to be. That's why hopefully we can do it this way and get a project that can come within budget or closer to budget. And you'll have a chance, once we get through everything, you'll have the plan specifications again. You'll be able to approve or reject the bids when they come in.
This design, if I remember when we did the basketball courts, we paid a little extra to have a slope on that court. Is that addressed in this?
Yes, it would mean
It would be
whatever.
the same type of, remember, if you remember, we had a price, then we went with a sloped, it was like a 3% or 2% grade, which added some cost to that project. You remember that?
I don't recall. I know there was discussion when we did the tennis courts at Rolling Hills that sloped from the nets out, where the discussion this time was make sure that the slope is continuous from the north all the way to the south, or from the, and I think that's what it was. And you didn't want to get more than a 2% grade, I believe, for the tennis courts to meet the specifications by the United States Tennis Association. So I can verify, that it is being sloped one direction and what that slope percentage is. Yes. And we'll make sure it meets the Pickleball Association requirements.
Jack, the quote that you were trying to give us the first time, did that include the parking and sidewalk parking lot?
No. Oh, yes.
Okay.
That was a complete price.
Do you remember what those prices were of each parking and sidewalk?
Let me back up. I may have missed actually. The price, the last meeting, I wasn't sure. it's the belief that the pickleball courts themselves could be under 175,000. Someone that is in the business who does painting and construction of tennis courts, does mostly the painting of them. They were in Carroll a couple weeks ago, felt that, their project, that it could be done for that price. The courts themselves, under 175,000. That does not include any of the sidewalk or parking lot.
Right, but that was included in our previous numbers when we looked
Yes.
at the whole project.
When we get new cost estimates from FEH, if this is approved, we'll get new cost estimates, and that will reflect the courts and the parking lot and the sidewalk. Yes, that will be a turnkey pickleball court complex.
And we'll be able to thus look at it apples to apples, the
Yeah.
blacktop project to the concrete.
The first estimate by FEH was 225,000, and that was for asphalt and what their best estimate was for digging out the soils 4.5 feet. Yeah, that is all included that. That's what you recall, Randy, when you read them, or? Okay. So, yeah, this will be now their estimate with 5-inch post tension plus the sidewalk and parking lot.
Is that what you were looking for, Wilbur?
Well, yeah, I'd like to know what the cost of the park, the actual court cost you're saying possibly could be 175,000 plus the parking and sidewalk.
Would be additional.
Okay.
Yes.
The only thing, I'm getting a little bit of resistance out there, not about pickleball, they want pickleball, but the cost of that particular court, we were looking at one time, like, what, 300,000 we were talking close to with the sidewalk and the parking and everything? Was that a number somewhere in there?
Excavation, yeah.
So I got resistance on that, but they want pickleball, but, it's tough to pay $300,000, so.
Right.
But what I'm getting at is some of that 300,000 was parking and sidewalk before, so then the actual court is reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were some minor changes we made to the plans. There was early on discussion with FEH, talking with some of the pickleball enthusiasts about having a space to put a shelter, picnic table, so they did pour a pad, a 20 by 50 foot pad of concrete, we eliminated that. One thing you could look at is on pickleball, one thing I would tennis, you have a 10-foot net, because that keeps the balls most of the time within the facility. Pickleball, that ball's not gonna bounce. There's no way I could hit a tennis ball, hit it, and it goes over the fence. Pickleball will never happen. So you might have an option of a smaller fence, not needing a 10-foot, maybe do a 6-foot around the sides. So those are things we're gonna consider at this point to try to reduce costs even more.
Have we exhausted all other options, finding different locations and different things in town, or have we looked at that yet?
I think that's probably still the best location. Could be on the table for discussion if the concern at Northwest Park is where you put those parking spots. And we're talking, I think, 2 parking spots. We're not building a parking lot for this. We just want to have access, handicap access, so those 2, I believe it was 2 or 3 parking spots we talked about having on the south side of the pickleball courts. Now you have quite a grade up there, so that's quite a sidewalk. So if there's other locations, be flatter, yeah, that's a possibility. I don't know.
I'm just asking the questions that have been asked to me.
Yeah.
I think the question that you're getting is the same one I do. We want pickleball, but we want to do it for as little money as possible.
Well, that was a sticker shock is what it was.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it is, but,
Hopefully we make a few changes to lower the number.
What if that post-tension concrete comes in even cheaper?
Yeah.
This was a very small asphalt project. I think it reflected probably some numbers maybe we weren't anticipating before.
And would there be an opportunity to, we talked about doing it this fall, right? Is there any advantage to giving the bid options to doing it maybe in the spring where somebody,
Absolutely.
so is that?
That's a possibility too.
Yeah.
So we don't want to
someone
try to
might-
rush a project, yes.
Well, someone might be willing to do it less at a different time when they've got more free time.
Over the winter, they can plan out the project better.
So that'll be given as an option.
That could be given as an option, absolutely.
Raina, and maybe you can't answer, but would this be a project that you could incorporate with like a street project, that we have some overlayment of asphalt for a street? Hey, by the way, we need this pickleball court thing, asphalt over there. Could it be an all-inclusive volume of asphalt?
It could, if you wanted to go to asphalt. We've done that before when we did the Rolling Hills Park. I think it was part of the street project. But, you know, the asphalt industry, particularly around here, has changed. And we didn't even get decent bids on our street project.
Yeah, that's true, that's right.
So, we're going to
Canceled some of
attempt to
those,
get better bids, and if you want to stay with asphalt, you know, it certainly could be included in a street project. But you're still looking at those costs.
You have to dig down 4.5 feet.
Of
Yeah.
excavation,
Yeah,
which is an expensive
Yeah.
proposition. So that's where you may be able to save money on the concrete overlay type.
Sure. Okay.
Doesn't concrete have long-term durability too,
Yep.
and less maintenance
Yeah.
and that kind of thing?
Yeah. And again, Randy can probably explain this better, but you're gonna build a post-tension slab. It's not gonna move, it shouldn't sink. If it does, it all goes together. You have minor cracks. I would say, a superior product to the asphalt. Tennis players, including myself, like asphalt. It's a little bit softer on the joints. The heat doesn't come off like it does on the concrete, on asphalt. It's a little bit cooler, but for the other items, you're getting a long-term project. I remember Carroll and I, when we were looking at the tennis court project, we went to Yankton, they said that was reported 20 years ago, and you still can't really tell any cracks. Every year they go tighten up the edges. It's a great product. We'll be talking about painting several times before we look at redoing the concrete.
Any other questions for Jack? If not, I need a motion to approve the amended letter of agreement with FEH Design for the Northwest Park Pickleball Court Complex for the additional total architectural lump sum fee of $9,300.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Dirks and a second by Councilman Fleischner. If there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and vote.
Seaman?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes?
Yes.
Bates? Yes. Motion is approved.
Thank you. Our first report this evening is the waive the purchasing policy number 501 for Espresso Bikes 2018. And Jack, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Currently in our weight room fitness area, we have 2 Espresso bikes. Very popular, constantly used. Get asked to have additional Espresso bikes in there. We have money in the budget to do this project. Espresso, this bike, there's really not a lot of other options to do what this does. So going out to bid, there's really, Espresso's the one company that does these types of bikes. We like them, the members like them. So our plan is the 2 that are there now are about 5, 6 years old. I just had to repair, when we got the handles, new handles on the one and some work that needed to be done with them, but that's pretty standard. I mean, when you have these used 10, 12 hours every day, they get a lot of use. They've held up well, but we did have about a $1,600 repair to that one. So that will give us 4. Our intentions are to put the new ones downstairs and move those 2 that are downstairs upstairs. So we have 4 of those units, and I know people really like them, and they've asked for new ones. So this purchase is over $10,000, so it requires council to waive the purchasing policy so we can order these direct. And avoid taking bids. We'd get 1 bid, this one.
Do you have any intention of replacing the other 2 anytime soon? Or
Probably about 3 years.
3 years, okay.
Yep. So we'll be on a 6-7 year cycle of replacing 2 of them.
You know, it's awful hard to go out and try to compare pricing on these units.
Yeah.
When I did it, I found that we were very close to the price of reman units
Yeah.
to what we can buy the new units for.
Yeah.
Just speaking of the unit, not the additional line item there for the 3-year eLive services, but the raw unit itself, it looked like it was a pretty solid value, even though we can't take it to a bid.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jack? Not, I need a motion to approve waiving purchase policy number 501 to purchase 2 espresso bikes for the purchase price of $11,840 without soliciting bids.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Haley and a second by Councilman Fleischner. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote.
Can I just make a comment here? It looks like the estimate is $11,840.40.
Oh, 40 cents,
Yeah.
sorry.
So I'll make
I'll
sure I
have to
get that
make an
noted in the
amendment
minutes.
we'll have to make an amendment to the motion
I'll get it in the minutes.
because I said $11,840.
And 40 cents, I heard it. Just want to
Okay.
make sure everybody else heard it.
And 40 cents, thank you.
Okay, we'll proceed to vote. Cox?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Bates? Yes. Fleischner?
Yes. Thank you. Our final report this evening is the American Legion request, and Jack.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn it over to RT. He's been here the whole meeting. This,
Oh, man.
I'll tell you real quick, this is a great project. I know the Legion has a great event down there on Memorial Day, and this will really enhance their opportunities. Let them give the request, and if you want a funding source, we can try to help.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. R.T. Schreck from the American Legion. I'd like to explain to the council a couple of projects we've been working on to hopefully better honor the veterans in the cemetery, those that are already there and those that will be there. And then I need just a little financial help from the city if I can, but I'll explain that. Every Memorial Day, as Jack said, we have a nice parade to the cemetery, and the program at the cemetery to honor the veterans. The problem over the past several years, and it's embarrassing, is we just don't have a good PA system out there. Guest speakers, the mayor, I think you gave a pretty good speech this year, but I couldn't hear it. But we have students that read nice essays on what the flag means to them, and then we have the honor roll where we read the name of the approximately 286 veterans that are buried there. But we just can't hear it. The one we're using runs off of a battery, and it's just not a good situation. It's almost embarrassing to me to be part of that Legion and to put on that kind of a program with the kind of personnel we have out there, but just nobody can hear it. So to fix that problem, I think we need electricity out there in that memorial area. Now, what I'm talking about is right off of First Street, straight south into the cemetery, where the memorials are there.
The circular area. Yep.
Okay. And so we've been doing a little groundwork, and we've had the help of the city to do it, but to go underground to get electricity up there, I can't believe it, but it's $7,997.15. But that includes the boring of the line and then all the proper boxes and outlets, so we'd actually have an electric cabinet out there by that thing with 220 in it and 110, which is what the city wanted, and so it includes that whole works. And we've applied to both the Timmerman and Renzi grants to help us get this thing done, and we did receive $6,000 from the Gilbert and Barbara Renzi Foundation, but we're short $1,997.15. And that's what I'd like to ask the city to come up with. I'd feel kind of bad about asking you for that kind of money if all we were going to use that for is a 2-hour program on Memorial Day, but we have another problem out there that I'd like to rectify as well. And that is dealing with the flag that's out there. That flag, the American flag that flies on the pole, is only 19 feet tall, and protocol would say that should be the highest thing in that memorial, and it's not even as high as the Civil War memorial. So we need to get that flag, we should get that flag raised up. And then another thing we've been kind of in violation on over all the years is if you fly American flag after dusk, it should be illuminated. And it's not, and it never has been. And I think it would be a real neat addition to that cemetery if we could get that done. So the Legion, with myself trying to lead the way, would like to go out and raise the money for that flagpole, which is about $1,850. And then the installation of it. Now, you know, it's just kind of sad, the flagpole that's out there has got a 3.5-inch diameter. The new one, because we're going higher, is 4 1/4, so naturally the hole in the concrete trunk, so we got to dig out the concrete and put a new pad in. But that's about $1,000. But the American Legion would take care of that $1,850 as well as $1,000. So the summary kind of comes down to like this for the city. The electrical project $79.97, and then the flagpole $1,850, and the labor's $1,000. So the total project's about $10,847, and the city gets paid, or we were just asked the city to reimburse us $1,997. Now, of course, beware of those bearing gifts of the flagpole and that. Once we get the electricity there, of course, we expect the city to pay the electric bill to illuminate the flag, and I don't think it'd amount to much for our little Memorial Day service. But I think Jack, and I know Andy, and I think John out there think they would have several other uses for that 220 up in that area and the 110 outlets up there, other than that PA and the illumination of the flag. So that's kind of where we're at. I didn't know when to come to the council to ask for this because I wasn't sure we could get the grant, and I know I didn't think I could raise all that money, nor did I want to ask the city for it. So with the Renzi grant, I think it makes it a real nice project for the city, and one that'll be able to be used for a long, long time. So that's kind of where I'm at. And if I get the go-ahead from the city for that money, I'd get, and I don't know if I need bids for this, but Danny Drake, D&L Electric, that's who this bid is from. And I don't have any other bid, so I don't know if it could be bid cheaper. And the flag is from Larry Boyce, who is a veteran, a member of the American Legion. And the concrete work is WCI, Scott Schoen, and Brian Beatty. And if I don't get enough money, I know those guys will help out on that side of it. So I won't be back here asking the city for any more money than $1,997.15. I can answer any other questions you might have on that project. But it's just not a good thing for Memorial Day out there. It's just, it's just terrible. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, I've been there.
I'd like to really fix that up.
Yeah.
And then we'll also raise the money, the Legion will, to get through Sound and Service, 2 very good outside type speakers with wind resistant covers on, so if the wind's blowing and it should be a very good thing. And visiting with Jackie, I just feel very confident what we're buying from her is what we need to have out there for wind and in that open area to project sound kind of out into nowhere. So I think that would be my presentation. Unless you got any questions, I'll try to take care of them.
I've been impressed, I'm just going to say this, I've been impressed with how many people actually show up on Memorial Day for what I would call a very low-key presentation that the city of Carroll makes relative to other towns. And it is amazing to me how many people go.
It is amazing, the honor roll, the families that come from Omaha and Des Moines, and from farther away, just to hear the name of their father or their uncle or their loved one read at that.
And they want to hear it.
They want to hear it. And we're going to run into a problem with that because, like I said before, there's about 286 veterans there, and unfortunately, we're adding 25 to 30 a year. So it's going to take a while longer as we go. But I think if it's good sound, then I think people appreciate it, or will a lot more than last year. I couldn't hear anything last year.
No, it didn't work.
Didn't work. The PA didn't work at all last year.
No.
So.
Why do you need 220 voltage?
Because I don't understand electricity at all, But if you're running 110, it's as easy to run 220, and then if you need the 220, you have it. That's my understanding.
Cost difference.
Well, you can split you can
Yeah.
have 210 or,
Yeah, that's,
all right.
I don't know anything about it, but they acted,
Okay.
when I asked the question, they thought I was.
If you go through the expense. it's-
Yeah, I was just curious if they're hooking up anything to 220, but they're not. They'll have
currently,
210 lines is what
but
they
as
can
RT
do.
indicated, the cemetery staff, that they could probably use that too.
Weed trimmer.
Your light's gonna be like underground, so they're proof?
Now, Danny Drake told me that that light is built, just the light in that bid is like $360 because it had to meet city code of not letting water in, snow in, that type of thing. I'm concerned, but we'll continue to work with the city certainly, where we mount that thing. Now, it's gonna be LED, so it shouldn't be hot. You know, I was worried some young kid or a rabbit could hop on it and get cooked, but it shouldn't be that way. LED.
All right, that's enough.
That's too much information. All right.
Rabbit at the cemetery.
The guy going stir crazy back there thinking about this.
I almost hate to say it, but as, you know, as a veteran especially, I'm almost embarrassed at only paying a little bit that they're asking. They've done a lot of legwork for this and such.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You know, it is city property, so.
The flag will be tremendous, yeah.
That's not a good flag. 1994 that was put in,
Oh,
but it's only 19 foot tall.
yeah, it'll be beautiful.
You have a place to put the old one?
I think the city does. We talked about that, and it may go, I don't know, I can't say where they're thinking about going with it, but we're certainly not going to throw the old pole away.
We use it at the new city office administration building?
We could look at options.
Yeah.
I wasn't probably involved in that conversation.
No,
I don't
that's
know, if maybe even down by the cemetery garage. I'm not sure what they're thinking, but we definitely try to use it.
Because we have one out front now, here.
Yeah,
That one will probably stay.
yeah.
We'll let it.
City Hall? Okay.
RT, what was the amount and for what? You said you were going to go out and raise money for one of the items you mentioned.
The sound system.
The sound system.
Yeah, we'll have to raise about $1,700 for that.
17.
But the Legion's going to take care of raising, and then one of the things, instead of wanting the city to, I didn't want the Legion needs a good PA system itself. So I didn't want the city to own that, and then we'd have to borrow it from the city all the time. So if I'm going to go around and raise a little bit of money to hold up the Legion's end of the whole thing for the speakers, and we've had another embarrassing thing that really doesn't belong here, but our trumpet hasn't been working, and so taps went down on us twice, and I'm not going through that again in a funeral. So we need a new horn and a player, and then the flag and the concrete work. So I'm going to go out, and the Legion's going to go out, and we're going to try to raise about $5,100, which will include the flagpole and the labor, so that takes care of the city, and then we'll get our trumpet and our speaker system. I'm not worried about
When you
getting
talk
that.
about a trumpet, you talking about a live person?
No.
You're talking about a recorded?
No, no, a recording.
Recording and-
You just stand there and hold the horn and turn it on, and if the thing wouldn't have worked, it'd have been great, but it worked long enough so everyone knew it was dying, and that was very, very embarrassing, and I don't ever want to go through that again. So we will have a backup. If you want to, you can throw in the flagpole too, but that's,
I was just wondering,
Well, we own
that's
that
an
city
integral
property.
part
Yeah.
of the city cemetery.
What were your costs again?
$1,850, but no bids. I don't have bids. That came from Larry Boyce, who's a member of the Legion. That's why we went to him.
Would we have to
He's
change,
good.
Mike, our bid process? If we give to this
It's not a-
project, what are we,
It's not a capital item. I mean,
Okay,
if it was
so it's
over, if it was 50,000 or more under state law, you'd have to go through competitive bidding if you were putting city money in. But I don't believe us donating and them doing this would subject
Okay.
any of that to this.
and where would this money come from? What would be your recommendation if we?
Probably local option sales tax.
Let's do it.
So you need $1,850 for the flagpole?
Yeah. We need that.
4,000,
So $4,000, okay.
then that gives a little room.
Okay.
4,000 is a nice round number.
That would take care of it and get it going so that we get this done.
Get you a pole, get you electricity there.
Yeah, we'll take care of the concrete, and the rest of it will belong to the Legion, the horn, and the PA system, which the city could use anytime they want it, if they need it for anything.
So what are we moving to do here? Are we donating X
I would
dollars to
donate
the
it, yeah.
American
$4,000
Legion?
for cemetery improvements, cemetery memorial improvements.
We'll need a motion to that effect.
I think I just heard it,
Oh.
and I'll second that motion.
We got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, we'll vote.
Bates? Yes. Fleischner?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll get together next week. Okay. Get a schedule ready. All right.
Let's see, I'll make one comment. I think Carroll Fest is coming up this weekend, so please feel free to get out and do something. I have to go down direct traffic. So I'll need some help from, I guess Shrek's gone, so. Any other comments from the city council?
I got one, I didn't have time to do this when we were talking about these exercise bikes, but they're 15 cents an hour is what you're getting. If that's how much you're using, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I was really surprised when I did the figures that that's all those really cost the city. It's fantastic that we're able to, it's a bargain.
Right.
You
You
know,
go
to have
down
something
there.
like that that's used that much,
Yeah.
12 hours a day, if that's what you're saying, and I believe it.
Yeah.
So
They use constantly.
it's a
those
great
two.
project, I wanted to say it earlier, but we were on to the next topic, but 15 cents an hour per, that's really something.
Jerry, I'll slow down.
That
No,
helps.
no, I couldn't add fast enough.
Okay.
People are staying healthy, too.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Any comments for the city manager?
I don't know all the details, and I apologize for putting Sergeant Shrek on the spot, but I know the police department's hosting National Night Out tomorrow night at
that's
Graham
right,
Park.
yeah.
Do you have some of the details on that, or?
It's just gonna be in Graham Park from 6 to 9. It's pretty much a free event, if you will. There'll be food for free will donation to the police association, coloring, chalk, face painting for kids. I believe we're gonna have a dunk tank, basketball game, or basketball contest, free throw, 3-point, fire trucks, sheriff's department, our K-9 unit, medics. That's about it. But
Sounds about right.
I mean, it's just to pretty much community relations, bring the community together with us, let us provide, a night, and the end goal is to have the neighborhoods take over next year, but we wanted to start this year as our first ever and kind of provide the city a place to come and get together with us.
Do you plan on having that in the press tomorrow or something?
It's been on the radio a few times,
Okay.
it's been on our social media sites. I'm not sure that it's been in the paper, I guess, I don't get the paper, I don't read the paper, so I don't know. I don't know where else they've promoted it at, but the radio and our social media for sure. And we've
Right.
hung flyers around town as well. So,
Burgers, food?
there will be burgers, yes, I think hamburgers, hot dogs, couple brats, baked beans, chips, water.
So hopefully the community will get out and support that. It's a great event, it's a great opportunity to get to know your neighbors, get to know our officers, so encourage
It's
people to do that.
our first time doing it, so, if we have a good turnout, we had talked about maybe trying to do it as a community in a central location once every few years, so.
Good.
Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
You did good for being on the spot.
If there are no other comments, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. Please vote.
Cox?
Yes.
Haley?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Fleischner?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bates? Yes. We are adjourned.
Thank you.